First 2 seasons of Yellowstone, and the first season I was a set lighting technician, and the second season I worked as a Best Boy Electric second unit. Motion picture wise, I'd say Terminator 2, T2 was probably the biggest project, and that I was just a lamp operator on. And then for music videos, I did Michael Jackson's Black or White video. So I had the pleasure of working with Michael Jackson. That was the third time we worked together on a project, and that was a lot of fun. My name's Kory Mills. My nickname is Hollywood because I'm from North Hollywood, California. And when I moved to Utah, where I live now, everybody here started calling me Hollywood because I'm from North Hollywood. When I was 5 years old, my mother owned a restaurant that was directly across the street from the Warner Brothers studio in Burbank. And I grew up a child of a single mom. And so my mom would leave work, her restaurant, and come pick me up at school and would take and drop me off at the gate of Burbank Studios, which back then was Warner Brothers. They called it the Warner Lot in Burbank. And I would run past the security guard onto the studio lot, and I would go from soundstage to soundstage to soundstage, hanging out with the actors and the directors and the producers that were working and filming there. And one of my favorite places to hang out was on the film set of Bonanza while they were filming the TV series Bonanza in the late 1960s. And so I would hang out on the film studio and just run from stage to stage until my mom got off work about 4 hours later. And then she would drive onto the lot in her little blue Volkswagen Bug, and she would hunt me down and find out what studio I was in, if I was in studio 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D, or whatever. And eventually she would track me down and I would be on the set of some movie, and they would be my babysitters, kind of looking after me. And I think the first job I had, it didn't pay anything, but I was on the set of Bonanza, and they had a schoolroom scene that they were going to shoot the next day. And they had a schoolroom mock-up, and they had a chalkboard, and they asked me if I wanted to write some mathematical equations on the chalkboard and draw some pictures just to make it look like a kid did it and not like an adult did it to look like a kid. So I just got busy and wrote on the chalkboard, and I don't know if it was ever in the episode or not, but that was the very first thing I did, probably in the motion picture industry. And just being a kid whose buddy had an 8mm film camera and some 8mm cartridges of film, we decided we were going to make a skateboard movie. We didn't know what video was. Video didn't exist yet in our world. It was still 8mm film, 16mm film, super 16mm film. So we had an 8mm film camera, and we hit the streets of Reseda, California, doing stupid skateboard stuff and just getting weird kind of avant-garde art shots, and just made our own little home movies. 1974, we were making our own home skateboard movies, and that was kind of the beginning of it, the taste of exercising some creative processes, and just learning that we could capture cool moments in time of our history on this little 8mm camera and have them to watch over and over again whenever we were in the mood to watch our videos. But that was the beginning of it. Well, I've done a lot of positions, but my main position for the last 20 years has been Best Boy Electric and Best Boy Grip. I've done both. Predominantly Best Boy Electric has been, that's been my main bread and butter for 20 years, probably being the Best Boy. So Yellowstone, I did the first 2 seasons of Yellowstone. And the first season I was a set lighting technician. And the second season I worked as a Best Boy Electric second unit. Motion picture wise, I'd say Terminator 2, T2 was probably the biggest project for the motion pictures theater release. And that I was just a lamp operator on. Everybody in Hollywood got hired for a day or two on T2. It was very big. And then for music videos, I did Michael Jackson's Black or White video. It was the first time you saw morphing on camera. It was before you saw it on Terminator 2. You saw it on the Black or White video when the faces would morph. They'd look one direction and then morph and look the other direction. So I had the pleasure of working with Michael Jackson. That was the third time we worked together on a project, and that was a lot of fun. That was a really good project. Most important project, I think, to me, I've had a number of them. I did a TV series called the Joseph Smith Papers, where we went back and we reviewed handwritten documents by Joseph Smith at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints office building. So I got to do the lighting on all the documents and all the presenters that we had that would come up from BYU, all the professors that would give their talks on the papers that we were reviewing for the Joseph Smith Papers. I did a documentary where we documented a group of people called the Prime Team for Northrop Grumman. And the Prime Team is the technicians that keep our thermonuclear weapons up and running so that they still function and they can operate in this day and age with 20th century vacuum tube technology controlling it. So that was very interesting to see the workings of that and work with a top secret clearance and seeing all the stuff that a lot of people don't get to see. I've worked with two presidents. I worked with President Bush. I worked with President Clinton. I did a town hall meeting with President Clinton up in Bozeman, Montana. I did all the lighting for that. And I did, President Bush came out and gave a speech at Red Butte Garden here in Utah. And I did the lighting for that too as well. So those are probably some of the most important things that I've worked on. I grew up in an extended family that were in the motion picture industry and was around it almost my whole life. I didn't have, because I was around it and surrounded by it, I didn't have any real desire to get into it at that point in time. To me, it was normal. Where I come from, everybody's family is in the motion picture industry. The kids that I went to school with, that I would go bicycle riding with and skateboarding with, one of my best friends, his father was a director of photography. His stepfather was a top gaffer and taught me a lot of what I learned and how to do my craft. I had friends whose moms were makeup artists and sound men. So to me, it was no big deal to be in the movie business. Well, I'd say like the most would have to be Yellowstone. It's every young American man's dream to have, cowboys and gangsters. It's like Sons of Anarchy on horses. We had quarter horses and machine guns. It was pretty cool. Very fun project. The reason that it's so good and so good to watch is because of Taylor Sheridan and Ben Richardson. Straight up. Yeah. The actors have a lot to do with it too. The actors are some of the greatest, nicest people you'll ever meet. In fact, most of my career, the talent, the actors and singers and stuff that I've worked with most of them, 99% of them have just been the best. We lunch together, we hang out together after work, we work together during the day, and there's a lot of them I consider friends. So that's been fun. The politics on Yellowstone are very tricky, and they started off very tricky. And a lot of people don't know that part of the original money to make Yellowstone came from Harvey Weinstein and the Weinstein Group. And that caused a little bit of turmoil early on in the first season of Yellowstone. But there's a lot of politics involved, and there's a lot of financial consideration that goes into filming a show like Yellowstone. Because a production that large that spends that kind of money is always looking for a better bargain for their dollar. So whereas Utah offers a good incentive program for films to be shot here in the state of Utah. Montana offers a better program. So they save more money if they go to Montana and film this. So you'll find a lot of shows that will come to Utah or anywhere, and they'll shoot a pilot, and they'll end up moving shortly after they shoot that pilot to a more financial friendly state where they can get more incentives and more bang for their buck and their dollars. But everybody on Yellowstone, as far as I'm concerned, were top-notch technicians. They all knew their job. They were all some of the best at what they did and what we did. And I think that it really comes together as it unfolds as a story, but it wouldn't be what it is without Taylor Sheridan and Ben Richardson. It's a movie called American Graffiti. You know that one? The reason it's my favorite is because it was the beginning of so many careers for so many talented people. If you look at that film and how it was shot and where it was shot, the kind of budget that it was, all of the people in that movie came out to be huge stars in Hollywood and have had tremendous careers from that one movie. That's heavy. And when you watch the movie, and I watched it like school, it was lit with the help of a director of photography named Haskell Wexler, who I had the privilege of working with doing camera tests for Kodak back in the 80s. And Haskell is just an incredible cinematographer. And so Haskell Wexler is one of the most talented individuals I've had the pleasure of working with. He's a little bit eccentric, but his work makes up for the eccentricity. He's been involved in a lot of projects throughout the years that I've really enjoyed watching. One of them was Easy Rider. It was a huge film for me to watch. My friend's stepfather was the best boy electric on that, and he taught me a lot in my career. But working with Haskell and knowing that Haskell lit American Graffiti basically out of the back of a station wagon with only the lights that he could carry in his wagon, that's incredible. For the amount of production value that American Graffiti was able to achieve with that little amount of equipment is phenomenal. And that should be a success story that every filmmaker follows. That's one of the greatest movies ever. And when I would watch it over and over again and study the lighting and study the camera angles and study the lenses that they were using, after about the 200th time that I watched the movie, I listened to the movie, and it totally changed the movie for me, because visually it's stunning. When you listen to it, when you stop paying attention to the visual aspect of it, and you listen to the music and you listen to the dialogue and how it was recorded, because they did some groundbreaking things that seem silly, like taking a radio in an alleyway and recording it there so that they get the ambience of the sound of the radio bouncing off the walls and the traffic in the background. If you've ever watched American Graffiti, turn up the sound and listen to it next time you watch it. It's incredible. Safety first. That's why I do what I do. Safety first. I'm the department head. If I'm the best boy, I'm in charge of a crew of guys. And it's my job to make sure that the equipment is safe. It's my job to make sure that the generator is grounded so nobody gets electrocuted if there's a short in the system. It's my job to test the equipment before it ever goes out into the field of being used on a motion picture. I test everything in a warehouse before I ever take it out on set. So safety first. In 40 years of doing what I do, I've never had a single crew member that has worked for me or with me injured because of something that I have done or something that I have neglected to notice and bring to somebody's attention. Safety first. That's paramount. Secondly, I paint with light. When I get to a location, especially an exterior, I love exterior lighting because I have so many things I can do. I can do, if we're downtown and we're in front of a building, let's say the University of Utah, who has these beautiful sandstone columns that hold up the portico, these beautiful steps that come down. I can put uplights in front of every single one of those columns. I can use colored lights. I can fake the moon. I have a palette especially on a big show that's infinite, and I can paint any picture with light that I want to, and I can change the colors at random. And so being able to paint something with light is where I get my artistic release. Free Coca-Cola. Yeah, the whole reason I got in the movie business, I could drink free Coke all day long. That's pretty good when when you're 20 years old, and you don't have to buy your own soda pop. The first time I got to set, and somebody showed me a craft service, and they opened the cooler. And I said, "Can I have one of those Cokes?" And they said, "Yeah, you can have 5 of those Cokes if you want." I can have 5 Cokes? And they go, yeah. I go, "Man, I'm gonna get in this business." I'm sure there's something. I can't think of anything right off the top of my head, though. Nothing?
Do you think the industry is fair with everyone?
No, life's not fair, though. My mom raised me, she told me life is hard, and it sucks sometimes, and it's not fair. And if you get that through your brain early in life, you'll go far. Yeah, it's not fair. It doesn't have to be fair. That's okay. Just my advice of, if you want to get into the motion picture industry, don't take no for an answer. There's not one person that controls the entire motion picture industry. And none of us in the motion picture industry that wind up with a 40-year career like myself have won numerous awards. None of us had any knowledge or talent when we started. When I got into this business, I didn't know one thing from the other. I fell into it. I was lucky. And I got hired on because I knew people who were people that were related to people. So I ended up getting a job just to keep me out of trouble for the summer. And the minute, like I said, I realized that I could get free Coca-Cola all day long, and I was gonna make $150 a day. When you're 20 years old, that's a lot of money when you still live at mom's house and you don't have any bills. So I was in from that moment on, but I didn't know enough to know I didn't know anything. So I was ignorant. But it was fun, and I was having a good time. And about the 3rd show that I worked on, the ignorance caught up with me. And I was hired on a crew. I was hired on a full-time crew for a film called something. Dreamscape. Dennis Quaid, Eddie Albert, Kate Capshaw. I know I'm forgetting a couple of people too. I can't remember who right now. And about the 4th day, I finished the special project that I was working on, and I just assimilated into the full-time crew. And the gaffer said to me on set one day, "Go get me a piece of equipment." And I took off running, and I got to the truck where they store all the equipment, and I had no idea what the guy was talking about. I'd never heard of the piece of equipment that he'd asked for. And so most trucks have a Teamster truck driver that stays with the truck. And I asked the Teamster truck driver, "Hey, I need one of these things that the gaffer told me to come get." And he goes, ah. And he hands it to me, and I go running back to set and I give it to the gaffer, and he looked at it, and he looked at me, and he looked at it, and he looked at me, and he says, "You don't know what you're doing, do you?" And I go, "No." And that was it. He said, "Okay, come with me." And we left set. We went over to our big 48-foot trailer truck. We climbed the stairs into the side of it. We went over to his desk where all his papers and his books are. He pulled out a Mole Richardson catalog, and he set it on the desk. He pulled out a LTM lighting catalog, and he set it on the desk. And he pulled out a Matthews grip equipment catalog, and he sat that on the desk. And he marked several pages out of each book. And he said, "I'm gonna keep you working on the crew." He said, "Do not show your face on set. Don't come to set until you've memorized these pages." And he says, "I'll test you on them." And I said, "Okay." And for the next 3 days, I memorized every single thing. And 3 days later, he came to the truck during a slow time, probably after lunch, and he started grilling me and asking me questions. "What is this? What is this? What goes with this?" And I told him this. And he said, "Okay, you can come back to set." But it was luck. It was luck that I had a guy that didn't fire me because I didn't know what I was doing. He educated me. And so when I find a guy that I hire, first of all, I ask them what kind of experience they have. And if they tell me they don't have a lot of experience, I keep them close to me. I don't send them off to do just, grunt labor that anybody can do. I can send somebody away from set that knows how to do that I don't have to go check up on. But a new guy that doesn't have the experience, I can keep him with me and I can teach him. I can teach him the basic things. So that's an investment for me, because if he sticks with it, if he sticks with the long hours and he sticks with the terrible conditions that we work under sometimes, late nights, freezing cold, scorching hot in the desert, if you can the other guys on the crew, poking fun at you. One of the big things we do is we poke fun at new guys to see if we can break their character. And if you can upset them and make them mad and, storm off with tears in their eyes, you don't want that guy on your crew. They might be sensitive and all, but they're not tough. You need somebody tough to be able to do this kind of work. It's hard, it's laborious, it's long. But if I pay attention to that guy that doesn't have all of the knowledge that he's trying to gain, and I teach him some of my tricks, not all of my tricks, but I teach him how to do his job and not my job, the next time I have to crew up a project, that's an asset for me. I can call that guy. And at the end of it, I'll have a crew, the guy that I worked for 15 years, I light just like him. And not only do I light just like him, the guys that were on the crew with me light just like him. So when we work together, I can leave set for half an hour, because if I have my friend Doug, who lights just like Dave, just like I do, everything's gonna stay the same. My boss trained me like that, so he could go leave set. And so now I've trained my guys. So in case I have to go do something, I can put them in the pocket of the director of photography, and I can trust that they will do what I taught them how to do. So don't ask permission, beg forgiveness. Don't ask permission. If you want to be in the movie business, you don't have to go to school. Go get in the movie business. There's nobody keeping you from getting in the movie business. I've gotten a handful of people in the business. I used to go down to a college in southern Utah when they would have career week, and I would give talks on the motion picture industry. And I was never really good at public speaking. I don't know if I was never good at it, I just never did it. And I got asked to go down and give a talk, and I found out that I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed talking to students that were looking for a career, especially if they were in some sort of film class. And the one thing I told them is, don't ever let anybody tell you no. Don't be afraid to go get in the movie business. You don't have to go to school to get in the movie business. You just have to know somebody in the movie business to get in the movie business. And if you want to get in the movie business, find somebody that you can meet, that you can know, and get in the movie business. There's nothing keeping you out. Nothing keeping you out except your own fear. A lot of people think that people will tell them no for whatever reason. I never found that to be the case. There were times that I've been on location out on the street in Los Angeles. I had a African-American gentleman one day. We were down in the Compton area, real sketchy part of town. In fact, you remember who Eazy-E was? He lived in the area. Mm-hmm. So he lived in the hood there. And we were down there shooting a film. And one day I was out front and I was making some adjustments on some equipment. And I had this, he was built like a Coke machine. He had to be 6'5", and I bet he was 320-pound Marine. And he had just gotten out of the Marine Corps. And he had his Marine Corps jacket on with all of his patches of all the places he's been assigned to throughout the world. And he stopped and he picked me to talk to, maybe because I was the only one that was in earshot. And he asked me what we were doing, and I told him we were making a movie. And he told me he lived right down the street, and I told him that was really cool. And he asked me if he could get a job working on the movie with us. And I kind of chuckled and I said, well, it doesn't really work that way, but yeah, let me get you a name, and you can come by and you can talk to somebody, and maybe they can find a position for you. And 2 days later, I showed up at work, and he was working with us. He went to somebody in production and said, I just got out of the Marine Corps, I live right down the street, would you give me a job? And they hired him as a production assistant. So he went from zero motion picture experience, just out of the Marine Corps, to working in the movie business just because he talked to me. Dream come true for him. That's pretty cool. Up until probably the early 2000s, we didn't have to have IDs really, because security wasn't an issue. And then I think for whatever reason, the world went mad. And so we started to have IDs when we did stuff. And so the first ID that I had to have was for a TV series I worked on called Touched by an Angel. And it wasn't even really an ID. It was just a sticker that said, what does it say? Touched by an angel. That's all. No name or anything. And so they thought that was a pretty good idea. Probably shouldn't have stuck the sticker on my ID, huh? And so the next year, we got, what's this one for? We got ones with our names on it and our department. And then, I don't know what season that was, but after that, they started doing it by season and with our picture on it. So that's season 6. That's probably, yeah, 5th season, season 5. They wouldn't let me wear a hat. What a stupid thing. So I drew one on with a Sharpie. I drew a hat on my head because I always have a hat on my head and it's usually turned backwards. But, so I drew my own hat on. So Touched by an Angel was the first time that we had to really start wearing identification. And that's because one of our main star had a stalker. So we had to keep the stalker off set. And then, no, I take that back. We had to have one, when we did the Michael Jackson videos, we had to have IDs. And let's see. Some friends of mine did a full-length feature film called Green Diggity Dog. It's a great film. I don't know if you can find it anywhere. If you ever get a chance to see it, Alex, watch it. It's so funny. You'll totally appreciate it. But they got to show their film up at Sundance. Sundance, they used to run multiple film festivals. They had another festival at the same time called Slam Dance. Have you ever heard of that one? So they made the Slam Dance Festival. And they asked me if I wanted to come to the premiere. And I said, yeah, only if I can get one of those cool badges that says I'm with the film festival. So they gave me a staff badge for the film festival. And then, that's nothing. This is for a movie called Unaccompanied Minors. And I got in a fight with the girl that took the picture. Not a real fist fight, but a fight. And that was bad. I had to buy her flowers afterwards. I said some mean things. And then these are from the Olympics. So I did the lighting for the Olympics for 2000, what was it, 2002, 2001? I don't know. And I did all the lighting for, they called it the Just Add Water stages, the Jaws stages. So I did all the lighting for that. And then this little pin here is what you clip on your lapel when you're with the President of the United States so the Secret Service doesn't kill you. That says they usually have them pinned on up here. They'll have this up here, and they'll have an American flag on their lapel. And so that's my I can be next to the President of the United States badge. And this was an ID that I had to have to get into the prison. I don't know if it's a federal prison, but that got me in and out of the prison, where we filmed another movie called something. Can't remember the name of it. But I only lasted 2 days, 3 days on that movie. I quit. I quit a bunch of movies, man. What is this one? This one was for a documentary I did for a production company, hang on, out of Texas. And we went to the dinosaur quarry out in Vernal, Utah, and we filmed the fossilized dinosaurs. It was pretty cool. But it was some church project about evolution. And that's an ID. But we didn't used to have to wear IDs. And then all of a sudden, all kinds of weirdos started coming around. And yeah, I think I've got most of the ones. I don't like wearing an ID for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is if you have something hanging and you're working and you go to get up, it's a choke hazard. So little safety things like that. But yeah, I don't necessarily like wearing identification.
Well, we'll wrap it up. Kory, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Alex.